Welcome back to Wired to Run, where our shoes hit the pavement and the dopamine hits just right.
Laura, you just came off the Princess Half Marathon weekend, and I
Mhm.
know there's a lot of stories from that race. So, let's start there. How did the weekend go?
It was a lot of fun. Princess Half Marathon weekend is very near and dear to my heart, as you know. I run that in my third trimester with our daughter. So it's a very special race weekend, a lot of energy, positivity, great turnout usually for Princess. But I loved doing this race weekend. A little bit better weather in terms of coolness. It did rain a little bit, but I wish we had this weather for marathon weekend. It was a bit warm, but I did the 5K and the half. I went out to cheer for the 10K and I love cheering. I love spectating. So I went to cheer on a bunch of my friends. But I stayed down there near Disney with my friend Amy. We ran the 5K together. We ran part of the half marathon. Um, but it was very, very bittersweet. I It's hard to talk about because we lost a running legend and a Run Disney legend. We found out the day before Expo Day, um, on February 25th. We found out that Jeff Galloway had passed away. Um, sorry. He was an Olympian and he was the creator of the run, walk, run method. He was such an advocate for people who weren't elite athletes and runners and, sub 4 or 5 marathoners, 4 or 5 hour marathoners. He was the every man, woman's, coach, advocate for running. And sorry, whew, he was a champion of everyday runners. And back in the early 90s, when Disney wanted to create a marathon at Disney World, they had a big question of how do you make, a marathon accessible to regular people? And they didn't want to just make it for like elite athletes, so they wanted to bring in families and first timers, and they brought Jeff on as as a as a consultant, and he was the official training consultant for Run Disney events, and he had this philosophy that pretty much shaped the culture of Run Disney, that every pace has a place. And, there are thousands upon thousands of people that would never have run a marathon, half marathon, 10K, 5K if it weren't for Jeff. I don't mean to get choked up, but I'm a Galloway customized training program member, client, and I've met Jeff many times over the years. You and I met him when we did our first, I think it was 2010, 2011, our first Run Disney race, and saw him speak. And I remember meeting him, taking your picture with him. You remember that?
Mhm.
And he was just so nice. I mean, the man had no ego, was such a kind person, high fived every person. Um, and always at the finish line, high fiving, thumbs up um, at the expos, signing bibs if you asked him to, and, would take his time with every person. I got up to talk to him a few times, and he always had a long line for people to talk to him. I remember our son, when he did one of the 5Ks, he wanted his bib signed, and he was talking to Jeff, and Jeff just took, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes talking to him, 10, 15 minutes talking to him. And, just he cared so much about people and he wanted to hear their stories, the personal stories. And he believed in everybody. He could believe anybody could do it. And I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer, a year later, was training. I signed up for his customized training program and signed on with Coach Twiggs um, as my coach. And I believe completely in Jeff Galloway's program and the run, walk, run method. Before marathon weekend, I got to tell Jeff I did the full 26.2 virtual marathon in training, and that a year prior, 1 year exactly prior, I was fighting cancer and I was in the hospital having surgery. And he had, like, a little bit of tears in his eyes. And I said, "You just inspired me to do this." He's like, "No, you inspire me." And I just broke down in tears to hear somebody who's so amazing, larger than life, like, kindest, humblest person, but larger than life in the running world that made such a difference in so many lives, to say that I inspired him. Just, oh gosh, it just brought me to tears. It just was like, there's no words. Just can't I can't even put it into words. So I remember just high-fiving him, at near the finish line at Wine and Dine when I was doing the challenge and was about to have surgery. And then when I finished the marathon, it was just like the most memorable thing. So I just want to pay tribute to Jeff because he was an incredible man. And I didn't know him personally, and I cannot imagine what it'd be like to know him as on a personal level, like his family, his friends, his staff. Um, I just I'm blessed that I got to have a few moments with him here and there, and to have the opportunity to train with his program and to have Coach Twigs train me. It's just incredible to have that opportunity because, um, I would not be a runner if it weren't for Jeff. And there are so many other people that would never have that opportunity. So, if you've been, impacted by Jeff, you know what I'm talking about. And if you've never heard of Jeff Galloway, please check him out. Look into, his training plans and the books he's written. Tons of websites about him, vlogs, everything. Um, just he's just an incredible man. But he really did believe back of the Packers can have fun and still finish marathons, that anybody can run a marathon, anybody can do it. So, his influence is so deep and so wide, and I just wanted to honor him that way. But for Princess Half Marathon weekend, they had a director's chair set up near the finish line where he would have been in that spot all the time at every race. And he had his big thumbs up cardboard that he always held. People would slap his thumbs up cardboard. And on the final day at the half marathon, we all had like little green and blue ribbons that we wore on our hydration vests or our running clothes. And when I rounded that corner with Amy at the half marathon, I took off my ribbon and I pinned it to the director chair, like right on the bottom and the front. And I just looked at all the things that people left on the director's chair, like friendship bracelets that had Jeff's name on it. Somebody wrote, messages. There's people that had put, the gym boss run, walk, run timers that was his interval timer, Bennett is, created. It was just incredible that, just was so moving. I was brought to tears, and I was just high-fiving all of the pacers that were standing behind the barricade, behind his director chair, just high-fiving them, telling them thank you for all that they do, and pacing people to get them across the finish line and being encouraging. And then I wasn't there at the finish line when the final person crossed the finish line, but all of the pacers, behind that person crossed the finish line together, like across it was such a beautiful sight. So if you haven't seen it, there's plenty of videos out there that show that. And, Carissa Galloway was so brave, and so is Weston and their son Elliot, their whole family. I mean, oh gosh, I just pray, we all pray. Will and I are thinking and praying for their family, their friends, everyone who knew Jeff. We're just thinking of all of you, and, you're in our hearts and our minds. And, his memory and his light will live on in everyone who crosses the finish line.
You're absolutely correct because, um, had it not been for the run, walk, run method, I never would have started running. Running was always a punishment. Running was always something that I think I've said before that, you play baseball, you play football, you play basketball. People don't go out and play running. So to be able to make it accessible to the common everyday person, it really did change the running landscape. And I read somewhere where, kind of his philosophy was um, there's no issue with having a walk break
Mhm,
when you plan to have one instead of having to walk when you have to walk.
mhm.
So it was just kind of strategically placing those walk breaks so that you could finish these races, being um, injury free. You're able to finish the races um, and actually enjoy them. So yeah, it's definitely a just completely changed the running landscape.
You're right, Will. That's not accidental. That's Jeff's influence. And it matters deeply for what we're about to discuss today. Jeff built a system for people who felt like they weren't fast enough, felt rejected by traditional running culture, thought that walking meant that they didn't belong or they weren't real runners. And he dismantled that. So that's where RSD enters the chat. And we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to ask you honestly, have you ever opened Strava, questioned your entire existence as a runner? Like maybe 5 minutes earlier, you were proud of your run and you felt strong, you felt accomplished. And then you see your friend or, your colleague's pace, someone else's mileage, or a crazy workout that someone did. And suddenly your brain goes, gosh, why am I so slow? If I were really disciplined, I'd be faster.
Or, maybe it's not Strava, maybe it's a race. You show up excited, you've trained for months, and then race day doesn't quite go how you planned. You know, I've been there recently at my last race, the Shark Bite half.
Okay, now that you mentioned that, let's go there. I know I said last week we're going to talk about that, so let's do that.
It was a tale of two races. Um, I got to the race a little bit later than I wanted to because parking for this race is really tough.
Mhm,
But a couple of weeks or maybe a month before the race, I was on a training run with you, and it was a half marathon distance. We did 13.1 or whatnot. And I felt great during the training run. Thought, cool, I got this. Which again was also kind of a bad thing because I probably didn't keep up with my training like I should. So get to the race, awesome. I'm going to do great. I'm going to do fine. And for the first 8 miles or so, perfect. Went the way that I wanted it to. Um, but then probably about mile nine, 9.5,
mhm.
I got a massive cramp in my right foot. And that's not really unexpected because for some reason that foot just doesn't like me. But usually if I get a cramp, it's at the very beginning of the race, not near the end. And once that happened, I literally was on the phone.
Is that when you were calling me and you're almost
That
in tears?
Oh my gosh, I was like, "I'm never doing this again." I legitimately said, "This is my last race. I am not signing up for another one. I am done. This is just no."
I was literally waiting for you to be like, "Come pick me up."
And honestly, the thought of you picking me up didn't go through my mind, but the thought of usually I will suffer through anything. I know we just kinda talked about how, suffering's not, um, but,
Mhm.
I mean, I literally will just say, I'll suffer through it, I'm gonna finish this race." This was probably the first and only race so far that I was just like, "No, I can't do this." And that's completely not like me.
Mm,
Th There really wasn't anyone that I could say, "Hey, put me on a golf cart and take me to the finish line." So it was pretty much have to, um, I have to finish this race, I've gotta get back to my car. There's no way for me to, um, you know, to pull myself out of the race, but I definitely went through those dark moments where I was just not happy.
Mhm.
And, and there was a few people, and again, I'm also that kind of person where if I'm in that spot, um, I kinda wa I kinda wanna be left alone.
Yeah, you get very cranky when you're in that
And
space.
it's funny
I can't
because
blame you.
but it was funny because there's one guy who kinda, like, saw me, and he's like, "Yeah, man, just keep going, I had a cramp, not too long ago, it finally worked itself out, you got this," and it's like, "Yeah, thank you," and kept going, and then, the last, like, 2 miles is just, like, a straight road, and there's an end eventually, but I remember, someone came up, a group of people came up, they gave me, like, a friendship bracelet, and it was just like, "Okay, I gotta do this." Yeah, so for me, it's definitely one of those, things where it was tough, and like I said, I kept texting Laura and just saying, I can't do this." And then, you kept encouraging me, you kept, saying, "You got this," and, she also kinda chuckled like, "Yeah, once you're done, you're gonna sign up for another race." She was right. But yeah, so it was really cool to have your support and to know that you, um, were there to encourage me, and again, it's so funny how a race can just fall apart
Mhm.
because usually the first part of the race, I'm always taking photos of
The landscape.
like, the mile markers and all just to let you know, "Hey, here, I'm at this mile marker," and literally it was first half, awesome, great, second half, never wanna do it again.
Yeah, you were not in the best headspace, and I could see that the wheels were coming off, and, when I was getting those texts like, "Oh, this isn't good."
Oh, I was on my rims, at that point. I was like Mater, just kinda, like, falling apart.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if you wanted some tough love or if you wanted, some comfort and be like, "You can do it." And I was trying to gauge where you were. You were, like, not having
I
any of it.
wanted a golf cart to come rescue me.
You're like, "D Can somebody send an Uber, please?" And I'm like, "You are finishing this. You know you can. You are in your head about it. You can do this unless you're really like, you've broken an ankle, like, you can do this," And you did it. You did it. I knew you could do it, and I was just trying to encourage you and remind you that you've been through some really rough races, and you've got this.
True, but that was the roughest one, and then just to make things even better, once you get to the finish line, I then had to walk another half mile to
To
the
your
car
car.
over one of the bridges,
Yeah.
thankfully a smaller bridge that we had ran over
Yeah.
during, like, mile 2 or whatnot,
You
so
didn't train either going over bridges. Like, that wasn't part of our training. Our training was pretty flat. When you were training alongside me with my dopey training, the miles that you did were relatively flat. We had a couple of overpasses we did, but nothing like what you had. So to your credit, you didn't really train for those bridges over water. Um, and you were getting pretty close to, like, in the beginning where you couldn't find parking, you were cutting it really close with the parking, so,
note
you
to
almost turned around, you were very close to not doing the race, so I think in your headspace from the get-go, you were kind of, like, checked out from the beginning, which was difficult for you to get
yeah.
into, like, the right mindset from the beginning.
So make sure you know where
Mhm.
parking is, make
Yes.
sure you know
Mhm.
when you have to get there.
I mean, you're 100% right, you don't know what's gonna happen on race day, half marathon, I was not even halfway through when 4 girls that were doing some sort of dance. I don't know, it was like a TikTok or whatever. I'm not up with the kids, Snapchat or whatever. I don't know what it is.
MySpace, baby.
My no, I mean, like, I'm not up on like all the social media stuff. But they were doing some sort of dance or like lip sync thing, and they backed into me, and I twisted my ankle off the curb or slant or whatever in Magic Kingdom, and I was pretty much limping on and off through the rest of the race. And then I got to like mile 11 with a hairpin turn going down the hill. And poor woman, I know she didn't mean to do it. She stepped on the back of my shoe, and my shoe stayed behind, and my foot came out of the shoe and was like several feet ahead. And I lost like my balance, and I almost went, full
Wow.
on, almost face planted on the ground. So these things happen that you don't, you train and you hope these things don't happen, and they happen. So you can't really plan for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for sharing that.
And it will never be shared again. No, just
I know you're
no,
very hesitant to share your race experiences, so I'm glad you opened up and shared that.
no, absolutely, because we all go through these things, and like I said, it could happen any race, it could happen multiple times during a race, and that really ties into what we're gonna talk about, because it could be anything unexpected, it could be missing a time goal, it could be that you walked more than you were thinking you're going to, and then instead of saying, "Woohoo, I finished," your brain just goes to, "I embarrassed myself.
Mhm.
I trained for this. Why did this go so wrong? Maybe I'm just not good enough."
Or you're like me, no wonder I was picked last for gym class in elementary school. Hey, those things still haunt people years later, so it's a fact. I was not the most athletic kid growing up. I was a singer. I studied opera in high school and college. I was so far on the opposite end of the athletic spectrum, I guess you could say, that becoming a runner kind of shocked me probably as much as it probably would have shocked my PE teacher in elementary school. So I was more in the arts. So I was, being a singer, theater, opera, chick. So I really struggled with that, like kind of imposter syndrome when I first started running. So um, that definitely enters your mind. And, this is why we want to talk about something that a lot of ADHD runners experience, but most didn't even know it had a name. It's called rejection sensitive dysphoria, or RSD. I had not heard about this. Never heard of the term, the abbreviation. I don't think you had heard about it before.
No. And if you've never heard that phrase before, there's still a good chance you've experienced it. Because for ADHD runners, it shows up all the time. For some of us, it's on a smaller scale, and for others, it might be on a larger scale. You'll
Mhm.
see it pop up in training, races, and it's really how we interpret our performance.
So, today we're going to unpack what RSD actually is, why some ADHD brains experience it so intensely, and how it can quietly start shaping our relationship with running. So, the big question: what is rejection sensitive dysphoria? Let's start with the basics. RSD is a term used to describe extreme emotional sensitivity to perceived rejection or criticism. And the key word here is perceived, because sometimes the rejection is real, but often it isn't.
Exactly. A friend or a coach may say something completely neutral or even nothing at all, and our ADHD brain just fills in the blanks. All of a sudden, our nervous system reacts like we just got completely rejected, even if no one actually rejected us at all. And the word dysphoria basically means intense emotional discomfort. It's not just disappointment, it's not just frustration, but it really feels more like an emotional gut punch.
Or, a lot of people with ADHD describe it as a feeling like someone knocked the wind out of them. They feel, uh, some people feel physical pain in their body. The feeling can come on suddenly and feel overwhelming, uh, overpowering, shutdown, even withdrawal. But the important thing to remember here is it's not about being overly sensitive. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor, clinician. This is stuff we're reading about. We're discovering as people with ADHD, learning what the definition is behind RSD and the details around it. This is stuff that we're finding out as we're researching it and just sharing with you.
Exactly. So, let's talk about what's happening in the ADHD brain because ADHD isn't just about attention. It's really about regulation. And that's regulation of emotion, regulation of motivation, and regulation of attention. And one of the key players is dopamine. And dopamine is the brain's motivation, the reward prediction system. It helps us to feel accomplished when we achieve something, and it also helps regulates that drive and persistence.
I think the challenge here is that for most of our ADHD brains, we tend to have like a lower baseline dopamine level. So we're always seeking activities or trying to climb those mountains that give us that dopamine boost. We're always kind of looking for that thrill and that excitement. And for us runners, we're always looking for that next challenge. So, running can actually be one of the healthiest ways that ADHD brains regulate dopamine. Um, I think personally for me and friends, I've heard them say that, running regulates our moods, clears our head. I feel free when I run. It's physiological because it actually does, we feel it to our core. It also affects how we interpret feedback and reward. And when dopamine systems are dysregulated, our emotional responses can be intensified. Um, so when things feel like rejection, it's like, watch out. So I guess our nervous systems kind of react much more intensely, which can cause a huge emotional reaction, triggering ADHDers to go from like 0 to 100. And people can, I guess really get emotional. So, not every person experiences it. I'm not someone who gets super, super emotional that way. I do have friends with ADHD that do. They feel this rejection, where they get dysregulated and they do feel that. So,
Absolutely. And one of the main parts of the brain that is involved is the prefrontal cortex, which is located directly behind your forehead. And as part of the frontal lobe of the brain, you can kind of think of it as the command center of the brain.
it's kind of like the, what's it called? It's like the Cranium Command from Wonders of Light Pavilion in Epcot. Do you remember that awesome attraction from, like, the '80s or the '90s?
Well, I really like Body Wars. It was kind of like that real life Star Wars.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine what, like, the Wonders of Light Pavilion would be like in Epcot today with, more information on ADHD, how the brain works? I mean, just look at, like, the movie Inside Out. If they rethemed um, Cranium Command to be like Inside Out. Like, how cool would that be? Like, if they have the console and then Cranium Command would be Riley, like in her head, and then she'd have that console, and then it'd be like all the emotions and everything. And
I mean,
I'm
they
so
already
great.
have the pavilion already.
Right? It's right there. Like,
Disney, if you're
I
listening,
know. Oh my gosh. I was thinking about that when the movie came out. I was thinking, like, okay, Cranium Command's right there. Just put the emotions there, make it Riley themed. It's so cool. I
come
mean,
on tomorrow. Let's get it done.
so cool. Oh, okay, side quest over. Sorry, guys. Sorry. What did you say? You said, the command center of the brain. Sorry. It just reminded me of Cranium Command. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
And back to the regular scheduled programming.
Sorry, I'm ADHD.
so so that's the area responsible for the executive function. That's that prefrontal cortex. So honey, what exactly is executive function?
I'm glad you asked. It's referred to as the CEO of the brain. So it kind of manages everything like impulse control, understanding people's perspectives, time management, kind of remembering what you're doing, like kind of walking into a room and going, "Oh, what did I come in here for?" But then again, like a lot of people, neurotypical people, do that as well. Um, Emotional regulation, that is a really huge one, which we'll definitely jump into. But this part of your brain, the CEO of the brain, that manages executive function, is responsible for a lot of things.
Now you've mentioned the emotional regulation.
Hmm.
I've heard you say that before many times.
Hmm.
What exactly is that?
So it's basically your ability to feel your emotions without being like controlled by them, fully controlled by them. Um, if you could think about it, everyone has emotions. You feel happiness, sadness, excitement, frustration, anger, kind of like the movie Inside Out. um, Emotional regulation is essentially what helps you respond in a calm and kind of cool, balanced way. So you're in control. You're regulating your emotions or in control of them. And sometimes it isn't easy for people with ADHD to emotionally self regulate. And my understanding from what I've been reading in a lot of the books and websites is the ADHD brain, because of the executive functioning, it's not kicking in fast enough. Your executive functioning isn't kicking in fast enough. That's what I've been reading about, which is really eye opening because I think you're human. People can lose their tempers or, from time to time. We're human. People do it whether you have ADHD or not. You can get upset about something or feel frustrated. Somebody steals your parking spot or something major, everybody gets upset about something, but it's the executive functioning that kind of is responsible for taking over and going, okay, let's chill out. That's what I've been reading about, which is like it's fascinating, like kind of drilling down to the scientific level. So, but the emotion is very real. The level intensity of said emotion is amplified. So that's why things like criticism on your run from your coach or someone on social media, like, "Oh, you're not fast enough," or your coach wouldn't say that, but somebody might make a comment if you're, I don't know, you put your Strava out there, your Strava output out there, and you've got a stranger that comments that you're not fast enough. You might take perceived rejection from being excluded from a group costume at a fun run or something like that, falling behind at a run club. Take that as social comparisons, seeing your friends, being part of a group that you're not a part of when you're running. Or social media influencers post their highlight reels and you're kind of comparing yourself to their highlight reels and they're not posting their rough days, plain old disappointment in your own run. You're letting yourself down. You feel like a failure. All of the above can feel devastating instead of mildly upsetting to someone who struggles with RSD. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. Because especially in certain communities where, um, a lot of us are striving to get faster, or if you have non-running friends, they don't understand, um, that not everyone is a sub 2:30 marathoner. Um, and this is where running becomes really interesting because running is full of situations that can trigger comparison and evaluation.
So let me ask you, I'm going to quiz you. What would you say are the top three situations that could trigger comparison and evaluation and rank them?
Okay, let's put me on the spot.
I have
So
the answers in front of me. You don't have
of
them.
course you do. Um,
I'm going to quiz you.
it's all about the medal. Oh
Do
no,
do
that's a
three,
that's
three,
that's
two,
a
one.
different question.
Yes.
Dunkin' Donuts. No, I'm
Yeah.
gonna say definitely pace.
What
Um,
what number is that? Would you say?
I would say that's probably number one because, for lack of a better word, we're all judged off pace.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes, you got that one right. That's number one.
that's
You're
a
thinking really
I'm
hard.
really thinking
Smoke is coming out of your ears right
because
now.
seriously, pace is the one thing that
Mhm,
that comes to mind immediately because I
mhm,
know that's the one that I probably struggle the most with.
mhm. Pace is number 1, fitness level is number 2.
Okay, that makes sense.
You guess number 3?
No, no clue.
Body type, believe it or
Oh,
not.
wow, okay.
Mhm, yeah. People are, comparing how they look, whether it's age or a body type or whatever. If they're, tall, short, big or small, people feel, a certain way about their body type.
So
triggered by, comparison and evaluation by
so
that.
you're telling me not to run next to Coach Tom?
If you have to run next to Coach Tom, you have to wear a tutu.
Absolutely, I will not be running next to Coach Tom.
Check out the tutu, guys. You'll get it. My coach, Coach Tom, he wears him and Adam wear tutus, the tutu guys on Instagram. But yeah, it's really running becomes interesting because it's really like Will says, full of situations where you end up comparing yourself. You've got so many parameters where you're looking at social media influencers, you're looking at your friends, you're looking I mean, I really, really struggled with that at Orange Theory, um, when we'd have leaderboards. Catch Me If You Can, there was an event. Do you remember that?
Oh my gosh,
Oh, it was horrible at that.
I feel like this is, picking on Will Day.
No, I'm picking
The
on myself.
oh, no, no, this actually, like, there was 2 times, at Orange Theory, and before we go there, because I mentioned Coach Tom, just gonna say, um, a lot of what the ADHD brain thinks is so far from reality,
Mhm.
because I know that if I was running next to Coach Tom in a tutu or not, whether I had a shirt on or not, he would be the most encouraging person.
Yes.
If I was falling behind, he would
Oh
be
my gosh,
he
yes.
would be like, pushing me on and, in that really nice coach way.
Yes.
It wouldn't be, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're slowing down." It would
No.
be, "You got this?"
Yep.
So, again, it's so much what the brain
Yes. But he
thinks.
would tease me about it because I've
But
known him for 9 years.
but you have that relationship with him, and he knows how to guide you. But going back to Orange Theory, I think it was, like, my first class,
Mhm.
and, again, I'm not really sure what's going on.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to keep up with everyone. I think I was in the red zone the entire time. In fact, I
Mhm.
remember the coach came up to me and asked me, "Are you okay?"
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, "Yeah." But going back to what was that? Catch Me If You
Catch Me If
Can?
You Can.
Um, I don't know if it was that or if it was, like, Follow the Leader, but
I forget that one.
it let's just put it like this, it was me and, like, a couple of, like, college age girls or
Oh,
whatever, and they were
yes.
much more fit than I was,
Yeah.
and so they couldn't, like, stop doing whatever the second exercise was. It might have been
Yeah.
burpees or something
Yeah.
until you finish, like, your
Yes.
thing
I
on the
remember Follow the
treadmill or
Leader.
on the rowing machine. I felt so horrible because I'm like, "These poor
Slowing them
girls
down.
are,
Mhm. Mhm.
doing
I
way
remember
more
you
burpees."
kept apologizing to them. You kept looking at
I
me, and I'm
yeah,
like, "I'm slowing them
I was
down."
just like, "Oh my gosh, I am so not
Yeah.
good right
They
now."
break you up into groups and yeah.
But again, they were perfectly fine with it.
Mhm.
When you're in an Orange Theory class, it was,
Mhm.
and again, not sponsored.
Yes.
When you're in one of those classes, usually the people that are there are
They
so
are.
encouraging.
Mhm.
Everyone remembers what it was like to be in your first class or to
Mhm.
be at a different level of fitness, and everyone's encouraging,
Mhm.
but it's always tough to be the anchor
Yeah.
that slows everyone down.
I forget, when you do Orange Theories, Catch Me If You Can, you all start on the treadmill, and I think you have to increase the speed and not get caught. So every so often you increase the speed and, um, there's a leaderboard, and whoever ends up, you know, running the fastest and the furthest distance and didn't get caught, you end up on the leaderboard or whatever. I would get caught pretty early. And even when I was at my fastest, there were some really fast people, but I would always compare myself and I would really get down on myself. And even though all my friends, we always had our crew, or we called it our happy hour crew because Orange Theory was our happy hour. We were get off of work and we would be so excited at the 5:45 class. We were we were so excited about it at the end of the day to be able to go to Orange Theory and just blow off some steam and stuff like that. And, my friends were so encouraging and the coaches were so encouraging. And I just was so hard on myself. And I could see how RSD would kick in, and then you're like, "I'm not good enough, and everybody else is better than me, and why am I even doing Orange Theory?" And I'll be honest with you, when it comes to OTF or, Orange Theory Fitness, they have a board with your heart rate on there. You can put your initials up there. Nobody knows what your heart rate is or how many what they call splat points are. You have supposed to get 12 a class to get that afterburn, to increase your metabolism and your calorie burn and all that, fat burn and everything. But nobody's looking at you. Nobody's even paying attention to what you're doing. It's all in your head. So that's why I wanted to bring an example up like, catch me if you can, or
Mhm.
you said follow the leader. Because a lot of times it's all in your head, you know? Um, you can't really go out there, you go out and go for a run, feels like a pretty good run. You feel really proud of it. You post it on social media, and then you see someone else runs faster. It's so toxic. You're doing it to yourself, you know? And suddenly your brain rewrites the entire story. And 5 minutes ago, you felt pretty successful, pretty proud of yourself. And now it feels like proof that you're not improving.
Absolutely. But in reality, we know that's not how training works. But emotionally, that comparison
Hmm.
feels like rejection.
Yep. You're rejecting yourself. Um, But another place RSD can show up is group runs. You show up excited with other people, meeting new running friends. The group might be just a faster group, faster than you expected. They might dash ahead, particularly run at their pace. Nothing wrong with that. It's a new group. In reality, it doesn't mean that you're not a good runner, but your brain tells you a completely different story. It's that good old feeling of I don't belong here. I have been there. I've done run clubs where I'm like, oh, I'm way out of my depth. Like I should not be here. We have a lot of good run clubs down here in our area, and the especially the women's run clubs are these women are fast. I'm not a super fast runner, so I would get in my head about it. That's why I like to run with friends that are running at my pace.
Absolutely. And sometimes your wife will just take off when
When her hype song comes on.
but again, you make a good point, and that's why it's really good to have like, that core group of friends, that core group of people that that
Mhm,
if you're having an off day, let's just say everyone
mhm,
is at that same pace, but you're having an off day. You didn't sleep well,
mhm.
you didn't drink enough water, you're just having a bad day. They understand, and you know that there's zero judgment.
That's true.
But then there's the big one. There's race day. And races can be one of the biggest RSD triggers for ADHD runners.
Mhm,
And that's because races create that perfect public performance environment. You've got
mhm.
the spectators, the fellow racers, you got those love and hate them photographers.
Mm.
And you've even got like those casual bystanders that even know there was a race going on. Um, it's like, oh, why are all these people running?
What are they doing here? I love those people are like, "What's happening?" They have their coffee, they're like, "What's happening?"
And it truly can feel like everyone is watching and
Mhm.
you're running under a microscope. So if something goes wrong, like you get a cramp in your foot that won't go away for 4 miles, the brain can interpret that as a public failure,
Oh, mm.
even though no one is even paying attention to what you're doing and they're focusing on their own race.
Oh, you touched on that public failure, like on a grander scale in like a race event, a triathlon or whatever. I get that, especially if it's a smaller race and they're moving people to the sidewalk. Like I know I get in my head about that. Being a slower runner, I've wanted to do a couple local marathons. Um, Fortunately, they let you finish, but they move you to the sidewalk, and they'll have the finish line set up still, but you have to move off the road because they got to open the roads up. And I will be honest with you, I do struggle with that. And I guess you can consider it as a form of RSD where I'm kind of like, okay, people are going to think, she's got her race bib on. There's people already going home and they're showered already. And I'm still on mile 18 or 19 and she's still on the course, struggling, huffing and puffing, um, waiting for a banana in her medal. Um, that that's I could see how people could kind of interpret that as like a public failure, or you're on display as a public, performance environment, you're on display like we've talked about in other episodes. Two of the top reframes for RSD I've been reading about are the evidence file and self validation and compassion. These are really interesting. The evidence file is where you sort of build a toolkit of past achievements or past successes. And this is really, really cool. It would be like photos of yourself accomplishing amazing feats, like crossing the finish line of your first 10K or marathon, triathlon. It could be anything in your past that you overcame or you look back on and say, wow, I was pretty darn strong, courageous to have faced something, overcome or face something like that. Could be anything like, my cancer battle. Like, you took
Yeah,
a picture of me after I had my cancer surgery. I could put that in my phone
absolutely.
in a folder of photos of things that I've overcome to remind myself that, hey, I'm pretty darn tough. So that when the thoughts come in, those negative thoughts of RSD or rejection or whatever come in, I can think, oh, you know what? I've overcome cancer. I've
Yeah,
kicked its butt. I'm a lot stronger than, you know, what I think others think about me moving to the sidewalk if I have to finish a marathon in 6 hours,
absolutely.
7 hours. Um, so that's a really, really good reframe is this evidence file. Journaling your achievements or saving the run with rally messages your family and friends left you during races. Um, they remind you how strong and amazing you are. I saved my run with rally messages, saved them as voice memos. That's a great evidence file option. So you have photos, you have some journal entries, you've got voice memos. I mean, these are great options to file away, showing yourself that, hey, nobody's judging you. The only person who's judging you is you, and you got to get over it because look at all you've done. So I really, really like that. It's really proof to yourself to pull yourself out of the RSD spiral, reminding yourself of who you are and not the story your mind is temporarily telling you in the moment when you're struggling with the RSD. Another is self validation and compassion. A researcher by the name of Dr. Kristin Neff did a study on the benefits of self compassion. I believe what I read was I think it's the three components of self compassion. Um, it's a it's a neuroaffirming tool to challenge the RSD guilt and shame and disappointment, you name it, negative thought or emotion impacting your self esteem. You accept that no one is perfect in this process, everyone falls short. And she explains that self compassion is being accepting and understanding of ourselves when we feel like we've failed or fallen short of whatever goal or a situation we're in, rather than falling into the trap of that negative self thinking or talk or judgment. Um, I didn't get to watch it before this episode, but I'm very eager to watch it. She has a TED talk on self compassion that I'm really looking forward to watching. But again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. Definitely seek advice from your doctors, therapists, and counselors. Um, these are just options that I'm starting to apply myself. The evidence file I've already started a journal and including photos and run with rally messages to help me when I struggle with negative self talk on my runs and my training runs. And then the self validation compassion is something that I think everybody could use, kind of going, hey, look, I'm not perfect and I'm going to mess up on training runs. I'm going to mess up on not strength training, Coach Tom. I'm very sorry. I haven't gone back to my strength training after Princess. I'm confessing here and now I haven't gotten back to it and logging my nutrition. He's gonna find out.
You could always edit that part out, but, I'll
I'd
make sure that it stays in.
I'd rather confess right now. He's gonna be shocked I mentioned him so many times on this episode, but I'm confessing a lot to him right now, so, um,
He doesn't know you have a podcast.
he does know. He does know now.
I know he
Darn
does
it, I
now.
shouldn't have told him. And, yeah, so the thing is, these are options, just options that have worked for me or I'm starting to apply that might help. You might have something that works for you already. So it's just stuff that we want to share.
Yeah, and I really like the evidence file because I think going back and seeing what you've accomplished, especially after you have something that may be truly kind of a setback, you know, like my half marathon. I did not do well,
Mhm,
but I know that I've done many other half marathons. I've done other events. Um, so having that file helps me to stay motivated for the next race.
mm,
But it's kind of funny that we're talking about an evidence file of things that we've accomplished
mhm.
because can we talk about Strava or any of those apps?
Sure.
Because Strava is amazing for community,
Mhm,
but it can definitely become fuel for comparison.
that's true. The perk of Strava, I think, is essentially turns running into a steady stream of performance data, paces, distances, achievements.
And for our ADHD brains, that truly becomes addictive
Oh, yes.
because every notification, every kudos, every PR or PB gives that small dopamine hit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Those kudos, we look for that, "Hey, you hit your fastest 5K," the little, um, notification that can become addicting, sure. And I think the same goes for any social media platform where you're posting your runs or your races, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. You know, us ADHD runners get a hit of dopamine waiting on the kudos from our family, friends, fellow runners that, follow our Instagrams. But, the flip side is that when the data doesn't match what we hope, it can feel like we're being judged at the same time. So we kind of have to walk a fine line with that.
And that's where I'm going with this. That's where one could see that RSD can potentially kick in. Suddenly, someone else's workout feels like a judgment of our actual ability, even though 100% it's not. This could lead to avoidance altogether, which is really sad as a runner.
You hit on a really important point that ties into one of the most powerful impacts of RSD. I've been reading in this one book. The name escapes me at the moment, but psychologists call it avoidance behavior. Gosh, I'll put that in the show notes. Um, if something triggers a very painful emotional response, our brain tries to essentially avoid the situation in the future. So it's kind of like a self-preservation. It's like a self-preservation mechanism. So you just want to stay away from that. So you avoid it altogether.
Exactly. So what happens, you have that one bad run, and you skip the next one, and then it becomes easier to skip
Hmm.
another and another, and it just
But
becomes a pattern.
yeah, but it's not because you don't love running anymore. So I just want to make that very clear that it's not, hey, I'm going to stop this because I'm giving up on running or anything like that. It's because your brain is basically trying to avoid the emotional discomfort. So it's just protecting you. I have done this myself. I had a really, really awful run marathon training 2 years ago. I felt like a total failure. I literally hated every second and loathed every moment of it. I doubted whether I would ever be a marathoner. It turned me completely off to wanting to attempt another long run. It actually freaked me out. I felt like such a failure that I avoided running the whole next week. I didn't go for a single run. Um, I did not realize until I was researching this condition, this RSD, what I was experiencing from um, that what I perceived as failure was RSD. And from the failure, I felt uh, from bombing that run, I had to realize that I had to take a step back. And I looked at I kinda took a bird's eye view of what happened, and I just kind of wrote out what went well, what didn't go well. Nothing went well. I'll be honest with you, nothing. I had the wrong socks. I had the wrong texture. Like, I should have worn a tank because it was, like, 92 degrees with 100% humidity. Short sleeve shirt, capri, like, leggings. I wasn't even in, bike shorts, whatever. Wrong everything. I had the wrong fuel, which seems weird because of my trunk or treat. Like you think that I'd have that right, but I did my trunk or treat bin and I didn't have the right fuel. I didn't have the right ratio of liquid IV. Um, it was pretty much everything. Nothing was on point. So I realized that it's actually not that I failed. It was information. I had to take a look and break it down. I had a really awful run because things went wrong. And it was just an amalgamation of things that it was perfect storm.
Mhm.
And so I encourage runners to take a step back when things go wrong during the run to kind of look at it from a data standpoint
Absolutely.
and not to avoid the next run. Because you know what happened? The next week, I, I I did better. I ran further. I ran faster. I ran 2 miles further because coach adds another couple miles the following long run, the next 2 weeks, I should say. It went even better. It was probably the best long run that I had in a long time. And had I avoided it, I would have never gotten there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is why understanding RSD is so important for ADHD runners.
Hmm.
Because once you recognize it, you can start separating the data
Hmm.
from your identity.
One mindset shift that can be incredibly powerful is this: a run is data, not a verdict. We discussed this on the last episode, episode 6. All of it is just data. That's what happened to me. It was just data. You write out exactly every aspect of what happened during that run. You take it in as data. It is not your identity.
Yeah, I completely agree. Your pace is data, your splits are data, your race time is data. None of those things define who you are as a person or even as a runner because the data is just a snapshot of your ability in that point in time. And there's so many things that affect that data. Your sleep, your nutrition, stress from work, kids, husbands, the weather.
Your wife.
No, wives are awesome. They're actually stress relievers. They're wonderful.
Oh my gosh, I paid him to say that.
But honestly, come the next run, the next race, it could be stellar.
And the runners who stay in the sport the longest are the ones who treat running like information, not judgment. And honestly, ADHD runners can become pretty resilient athletes once we understand this because we learn how to keep showing up for ourselves, which leads to us being able to show up for others, even when our brains are telling us a story that's not true. In a previous episode, I shared a letter I wrote to myself before I attempted the dopey challenge. And in one of the lines in the story was, I woke up to the realization that limits I thought were permanent were actually just stories I'd been telling myself. So let me ask you, what stories do you tell yourself? What is your inner monologue? But more importantly, what do you want your story to be? So if you've ever finished a run feeling proud, only to lose that feeling after seeing someone else's pace, or you've ever walked away from a race feeling ashamed, you're not alone.
And more importantly, you're not broken.
I know we say that a lot, but we're building new neural pathways to remind ourselves we aren't broken or less than as runners. We're just wired differently. Your brain might just be reacting through the lens of RSD. And once you understand that, you can start taking your power back.
because running isn't about proving your worth. It's about movement and growth and showing up again tomorrow.
And if your brain sometimes makes that harder, it's totally okay because that doesn't make you less of a runner. It just means you're wired to run a little differently. As you all know, we are just here sharing our experiences as ADHD runners. Don't take anything here as medical or mental health advice. Always seek out advice from your own medical and mental health professionals. Thanks so much for joining today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show. You can like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and Facebook to stay connected. So let's lace up, lock in, and let's go the distance.